Hi, my name is Ryan Lovar. I'm the Chief Legal Officer and Head of Business and Legal Affairs for Digital Assets at WisdomTree, and you're watching Taking Stock.
Counting down to the close, everyone, welcome. It's the first trading session of August, Monday, August 3rd. I'm Kristen Scholler. This is Taking Stock Live. Joining me, of course, is the Einstein of Wall Street to break down everything we need to know on this first trading day of August. Peter, what's the deal?
You know what, look, we came in after the weekend where the president actually stated that he was not going to do the biggest attack in history. So that put everyone at ease, I guess, temporarily. But also at the beginning of every month, fresh money comes into the market. And obviously with a market that's trended up all afternoon, it was a perfect opportunity for people to put money to work. I think we're seeing that the war is not something we're engaging on a regular basis. It's a little bit of this and that. We obviously saw oil's coming in, that's major. The implications of oil at 83 is so much better inflationary-wise than it's been for a while. So these are all positive things for the market. No war, at least on pause, and then oil at $83, $85 is huge on all fronts.
Looks like we're going to close at a record high. That's pretty nice, right, to start August?
It's probably the 47th record high of the year.
Yeah, pretty strong indeed. So a lot of things have changed, right? At least the narrative now is more positive when it comes to Iran. AI spending still seems to be positive too. But let's send it to that closing bell. Yes. We've got a packed one for you. Winner's Circle Project doing the honors today.
S&P 7600.
All right, everyone, we are officially closed for trade on this first session of August. Let's take a look at the tape, starting with the S&P 500. I see down here on the floor the NYSE, it closed up 1.5%. The Dow higher, reclaiming a level of 53,000 for a gain of 1.3%. And we see the NYSE Composite higher by 0.6% as the small cap Russell 2000 led the way, higher by 1.8% in today's session. And a very strong day, record close for the major indices. I do want to bring in our guest here at the market close now that we are officially finished for business. Melissa Otto, she's head of Visible Alpha Research at S&P Global. Melissa, welcome. Hello. What do you make of this trading session?
Wow. Holy mackerel, it looks like a little bit of momentum came back in the market this afternoon. Very exciting to see that.
A lot of momentum indeed. Let's talk earnings because certainly we do see the major indices move on earnings. SpaceX set to report. What are you watching?
We're watching a couple of things. First and foremost, all eyes are really going to be on that connectivity segment. How is Starlink behaving? Investors are likely going to want to see north of 10,000 satellites in orbit. And that operating profit margin getting to at least 36% this quarter. Consensus is looking for 37.5% next quarter. So all eyes on the guidance around that as well, because that's really what's driving the earnings for the entire company at the moment.
Yeah.
CapEx as well will be really important for the AI segment. We see a wide range of CapEx assumptions around AI for the company. It could be anywhere from $1 to $6.5 billion, which is really what's making it so difficult to assess what the EPS will be for the company and how to value it.
I'm glad that you brought up XAI. Well, AI, I guess in particular, right? And a lot of talk since the XAI merger. How important is revenue in that area for investors?
I think it's very important. Revenue growth is ultimately what is dictating the return. So we're, investing this money. We want to grow the company, and revenue is the best evidence that investors have of how that growth is coming to fruition.
Yeah. So we've seen 6 of the 7 Mag 7 companies report so far. Of course, the largest technology firms out there, even though each of their business models is a little bit different than the next. You mentioned the AI CapEx focus here. Now, when it comes to what this, might portend going forward, what have you been able to glean?
One of the most exciting data points out of the quarter so far has been around Microsoft. Microsoft's earnings were very solid for the quarter. But what got, I think, investors excited was very much the fact that their guidance for the cloud accelerated from this most recent quarter. And that acceleration is potentially some very clear evidence of the CapEx really coming to hit the market.
Yeah. Any other takeaways from these big name companies as they've been reporting?
Any other big takeaways? CapEx, CapEx, CapEx. It's all about AI. This is really what people are talking about. They want to understand, is this really going to move the needle in terms of earnings growth?
Yeah.
And I think we're starting to get whispers of that, but that's really what's on investors' minds.
NVIDIA would be 7 of 7 in terms of the Mag 7 reporting. What are you looking forward to when NVIDIA reports?
I mean, we ran our models just before this segment, and what I can see is that from last quarter, we've seen all the major line items for the company edging up higher. Whether it be data center revenues, data center profits, Blackwell, all of these things are demonstrating that there is a fundamental acceleration around expectations in their business.
You know, it's interesting here. We've had several companies go public. It seems like the market is open for that, and closing at a record high certainly would seem to add to sentiment. Are you finding that sentiment in the market is strong now?
I mean, sentiment has been wild. I mean, I feel like we ebb and flow between, okay, it's a risk on, it's a risk off, it's about the Middle East, it's not about the Middle East, it's about CapEx, it's not about CapEx. I think at the end of the day, companies that deliver strong fundamentals, beat expectations, and continue to demonstrate that there's strength and sustainability in their business models are probably the ones to pay attention to.
That's interesting that you say that. Any other firms outside of the Mag 7 that are on your radar?
Absolutely, Micron.
Interesting. Okay, tell me more.
Memory. I mean, this has been an amazing story. I mean, everyone thought memory was left for dead, and here we are. It's back to life. Whether it be Samsung, SK Hynix, or Micron, these companies have just come alive. And so the question is, what is the point at which they meaningfully slow down? And coming into this quarter, we're going to be keenly listening to what the earnings growth looks like and where, in fact, the trajectory of expectations should be going for the company. Right now, the stock trades at 6 times PE for next year, compared to Apple at 35 times. So I think investors are really wanting to understand, is this just a short-term trade, or is this likely to be around for a while?
Yeah.
So I think we'll be listening keenly for that.
We're going to get some major economic data as well, notably the jobs report. Does the economic data matter for these large technology companies, and if so, to what extent?
The economic backdrop is in fact important because it dictates the direction of travel for the dollar. How the dollar plays out in this environment affects all sorts of things around revenues and earnings and how different transactions are going to happen. And so I think there is an important dimension to this whole macro backdrop around where these companies are going to be placed in terms of international transactions around the dollar. So another aspect of the macro that I think is very important is headcount. We've seen headcount be quite volatile at these firms. We have 10,000 employees coming out and then another 9,000 coming in. And I think that's been around them having to really repurpose and refocus the skill set of their tech talent to position for AI.
All right, Melissa Otto, thanks so much for joining us down here on the
Thank
trading
you.
floor.
It's fun. I love being down here.
Great to
Thank
have you, yes. We are indeed officially off to the races. Of course, the first trading session of August in the books, and let's take a little walk because we want to show you some stocks that were on the move today down here on the floor of the NYSE. Hi guys, how's it going? We got a packed crowd here as the market closes for trade. We see record highs across the board for the major indices, so certainly off to a strong start. And we do see oil prices coming down. That has helped the overall major indices. We also see the sentiment a bit stronger. We had several IPOs just last week alone. We're going to come a little bit closer there. We're going to show you two NYSE listed companies, Sally Beauty as well as Boeing. Both of these stocks on the move today, and both of them quite solidly in the green. Howie, our photographer there, is going to zoom in on Sally Beauty to take a look at that one. Shares of Sally Beauty, ticker symbol SBH, closing up almost 8% on the session. This one very much in focus, and that is because it saw an earnings report this morning delivering a slight earnings per share beat. Global e-commerce net sales surging 11%, also generated $81 million in operating cash flow for the quarter, narrowing its full year guidance targets within its previously stated ranges. And let's move on over to Boeing. That stock did clinch a more than 8% gain on the session. Big news for Boeing, those shares up as the FAA certifies the 737 MAX 7. The milestone ending a nearly decades-long regulatory ordeal marked by safety crackdowns, design overhauls, and legislative mandates. The smallest Boeing MAX jet airliner now all clear for takeoff. All right, well, I think we're going to take a little bit of a break here, but we'll have a lot more on the other side of Taking Stock. The New York Stock Exchange is a proud supporter of the 2026 Aspen Ideas Festival, and I'm pleased to be joined on site by Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York. Senator, welcome.
Thank you.
What brings you to the festival this year?
I'm doing a panel on the future of cryptocurrency, blockchain, AI, and on bipartisanship.
And what are you planning to share on that panel for attendees?
So Cynthia Lovemus and I, we're going to talk about the work that we do together to get things done in the Senate to help the American people to write laws that can make our economy strong, make us competitive worldwide, continue to allow us to compete and to innovate and be at the forefront of technology.
You referenced earlier that you're going to be speaking alongside Senator Loomis. Of course, she's a Republican from Wyoming. You're a Democrat from New York. How did you two come together to work on cryptocurrency?
So about almost 5 years ago now, Cynthia and I both expressed interest in this area of the economy. And New York is an innovative part of commercial and finance. We are the center of the world financial markets. Wyoming, her state, was very much at the forefront of builders, particularly of Bitcoin and the advent of mining and building on the blockchain. And so we both had a reason to want to regulate this industry well so that we could be competitive with the world and so that our consumers, our customers would have safety and soundness, would have protections, would be able to build businesses here, have it be regulated, and be able to compete worldwide. And so that incentive got us to work at the table together over the last 5 years, and we have a piece of legislation that is nearing its final stages, and we expect it'll pass sometime this summer.
Interesting. What is going to fuel that passage?
So there's been a lot of bipartisan work that has been very rigorous to make sure we have strong consumer protections, to make sure we have a strong ethics rule so that members of Congress, senior administration officials, president and vice president can't issue cryptocurrencies or stable coins. We want to make sure that we have appropriate levels of guardrails. We have to make sure that consumers are protected in understanding what they're buying and what the differences are, and that the regulators, both the CFTC and the SEC, can play a vigorous role in oversight and accountability.
Artificial intelligence is another key theme that we hear about in nearly every conversation that we have. As a senator, what is your view on AI?
So AI has the potential to be the greatest opportunity for humanity. It has the potential to cure diseases, to eradicate cancer, to have breakthroughs on every type of area of science, mathematics, healthcare, innovation. It also has a huge potential to do grave, grave harm, to allow such compute power to be in the hands of people who seek to do harm, whether they're building new viruses or whether they are using AI to generate different types of weapons or create chaos. It's all possible. So you need strong leaders in Congress, Democrats and Republicans, who are willing to take the responsibility of finding common sense bipartisan regulation that allows us to continue to build, innovate, compete, and outperform our adversaries and even our competitors, such as China, but also make sure we have the kinds of safeguards, the kinds of guardrails that allow us to protect our kids, to protect our healthcare system, to protect vulnerable seniors who are constantly being scammed. We have to make sure deep fakes don't destroy people's access to factual information. We have to make sure that people know what's truthful and not truthful. And so those are the types of issues that we need to wrestle with to write good common sense regulation to make sure we can continue to grow, thrive, innovate, but also protect those we love the most.
How do you think AI can be harnessed for good?
Well, the easiest example is in the healthcare space. I think the compute capability is so significant in AI that it will be able to have massive scientific breakthroughs for curing disease and for providing access to better healthcare to more people around the globe.
All right, Senator Gillibrand, thanks so much for sitting down with us here at the festival.
My pleasure.
Welcome back to Taking Stock, everyone. We're here at the FinTech studio on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Joining me now is Andy Baer. He's Managing Director of Asset Management. Andy, great to have you. August
Thanks.
Officially underway.
Yes, after a July that kind of racked up some gains in crypto. It didn't feel so great, but Bitcoin actually scratched out a high single-digit return, and Ether really led the way with up about 18-19% for July. So as Q3 got off to a start, it looks like we're coming off the bottoms.
Okay, coming off the bottoms, and what does that portend for cryptocurrency ahead?
Yeah, I still think we have to be a little bit cautious because although we had good price action, volumes are still low, financing rates are still low. We really didn't get a lot of information from the Fed after last week's meeting. I still don't know where that kind of max hawkish point is when we know we've reached the top of interest rate mountain and we can start coasting down the other side. That's going to affect Bitcoin. At the same time, we have kind of back and forth on the Clarity Act held up in the Senate right now, which is holding back people's fingers on the buy button for Ether and other assets. So there's a lot of still uncertainty out there, but it's good to know that prices were stable. They're not matching the equity's spectacular performance today, but there's been resilience, and we caught a bid during the day today too.
What's it going to take to push through the Clarity Act?
Clarity Act really has a lot of politics in it right now. I think there's tremendous support. I'm looking all over X today, and there's all kinds of lobbyists from asset management companies and other figures, not only in our industry, but just in finance industry more broadly. It's unclear whether they have the votes. It's unclear whether they can get it to the floor before the Senate goes away for the summer at the end of this week. That would only leave us a small window in September to get this passed. The betting market odds say it's down, even during the day we've fallen down to about 27%. So I would say the market would take it as a very, very pleasant but rather large surprise now if we got clarity through. In the meantime, we have rulemaking by the SEC and the CFTC. That will help to hold us over, and we hope that that would survive into what administration comes next.
Do we need passage of the Clarity Act to see a recovery in cryptocurrency? I mean, Bitcoin has sort of been hovering near these levels for months now.
Yes, we've been, sure thing. The winter has lasted about 10 months, really since that deleveraging event back in October. And I think the uncertainty is worse than the bad news. So I think if we can just get through the clarity process, and again with interest rates get to that point of max hawkishness, I think the market will start to open up a little bit. You'll be able to tell because you'll see leverage coming back into the crypto system. And how do you see leverage coming back into the crypto system? Look at rates on decentralized platforms. Their numbers are right there, and when those numbers start to go up, you'll know that people want to borrow more, put more money to work, and that will be a great sign that energy is returning to the crypto space.
Break down for our viewers a bit more the difference in price action between Bitcoin and Ether and why it matters.
I think that narratives are completely different, and this is what's so great about the asset class. It's people think of it as crypto, but it really represents a bunch of, two very fundamentally different storylines. Bitcoin you want to hang on to, it's a financial asset. It's something that's going to rise as the dollar gets weaker. It's something that's going to respond to interest rates and leverage, to scarcity. Ether and the Ethereum network represent growth. They represent blockchain adoption, when you hear about tokenization, stable coins, decentralized finance, a lot of that has to settle on Ethereum's rails. And therefore, the more that happens right now, the Ethereum network has about over 50% share in a lot of these tokenization and stablecoin platforms. That's what's going to keep Ether going. So investors or traders who are looking at that macro side, keep an eye on Bitcoin. When they want that adoption side, then you want to look at Ethereum, Solana, other layer 1 blockchains, and other tokens going down from there.
All right, Andy Bayer, he's Managing Director of Asset Management. Andy, thanks as always.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but we'll have much more of Taking Stock on the other side.
I started Poppy because I had a personal problem, had tummy problems, couldn't figure it out. And what we find is people don't read labels. They don't know what they're putting into your body. So I took it into my own hands and I created the first version of Poppy. Then I took it to retailers nationwide. It became, I would say, the internet and America's favorite soda. Then selling it to Pepsi for, let's call it 2 billion. Let's round up on that one. But it's really living the American dream.
And this is a prebiotic, not a probiotic. What is the differentiator there?
Oh, it's a great question. So Poppy has 3 grams of prebiotics, which is a fiber. So probiotics is what you might find in a yogurt, a living culture, sauerkraut, kombucha. All of those things are probiotics. We are a prebiotic, so it's a fiber. It's really simple.
How did you navigate fundraising for Poppy?
So like I said, I mentioned the American dream. I actually went on to Shark Tank and got a deal on Shark Tank. And after getting that deal, we met our shark and he was able to fund us the entire way. So we raised around $65 million over a period of 5 years. And we're one of the fastest growing beverages in the history of beverage, from 0 to 500 million in 4.5 years.
You started this because you mentioned you had a personal problem and it's really become a category disrupting brand. What does it feel like to have made such an impact like that and helped so many?
Well, our mission was always to revolutionize soda for the next generation. And now Poppy is in over 1 in 4 households in America. And it's just so cool. We're at this event here. I get to see people walking around drinking Poppy and their kids drinking it, and the next generation of soda drinkers. And that is real impact on Americans' diets, emotions, lives. It's just really fun. And I'm so happy I was able to create a legacy for forever. It's so cool.
Can you describe the product to me? Why do you think it has resonated like it has? What makes it so special?
I think that we are fun. At the end of the day, Coffee is intentional with their marketing. We're a brand first, digital first, creative first, community first brand. And what that means is we lead with the brand. So it's poppy colors, it tastes amazing, it's emotionally connected with community, and we move with the speed of culture. So we have billions of views on TikTok. We work with thousands of creators and community and UGC. And we're just, I think, the next generation of soda and how you market to consumers. And I really connected with it.
When you look at the next generation of consumer brands, what excites you the most?
That's a great question. So for me, it's something that's 20 to 30% better. I think this better for you movement, it's here to stay. People are reading labels. People are more concerned and more educated on what they're putting into their body. So I think that yes, Americans love flavor, but you can have flavor and a little bit better for you. I don't think it has to be zero sugar by any means. I think people like to indulge. I think protein is really, really big. I think hydration is big. So I'll be paying attention in those two categories.
Do you feel like you found a middle path with Poppy?
You know, when we launched Poppy, no one believed that we were a soda until we told everyone we're a soda. And we did the Super Bowl ad our 3rd year in business where we said soda 17 times. We tripled our awareness overnight. And after that, everyone started saying we were a soda. So sometimes you have to say it before everybody else.
I'm Scarlett Sieber with Money 2020, and this is Jargon Translator. Today's term is Resolution Authority. Resolution Authority answers a critical question. Who gets to decide what happens when a financial institution fails? Not whether it fails, but how. Before modern resolution frameworks, failures, they were pretty chaotic. Either government stepped in with bailouts or systems collapsed through disorderly liquidation. Resolution Authority was created to avoid both of those extremes. It gives designated regulators the power to take control of failing institutions, separate critical functions from losses, and allocate pain without destroying the entire system. In other words, it's about managing failure, not pretending it won't happen. Fast forward to today. Resolution Authority is why regulators spend so much time on living wills and recovery plans. They're not planning success, they're planning containment. Resolution Authority doesn't make failures painless, it makes them survivable. And in complex systems, that distinction really matters. That is your Jargon Translated. If there's a term that you want explained before the next crisis forces everyone to learn about it, drop it below and it might just make the cut. In the meantime, back over to you.
That's going to do it for today's show. Everyone, record day on Wall Street. Snap jumping 12% in after hours on strong earnings. We'll have much more tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern on NYSE Live.